Hi, I'm Corey Butler.
And I'm Sean Todd. And this is the Mind and Money Show, powered by Acivda Financial.
On our show, we'll be going into a deep dive into the relationship we have with our minds, health, and our money.
If you'd like to join us on our journey towards becoming better humans, stick around.
We're here again.
Yes,
back
loving
at
this.
it.
Great feedback so far, actually. Really enjoying this.
It's been incredible. And thank you for everybody that has joined us on our journey to becoming better humans. We are super thrilled with the results we've seen so far. And as we all know, we are all on this journey together. And in terms of the life-changing events that we've all had and some of the difficult decisions we've had to make in our careers and pivots that we've made in life.
I really had an interesting chat with you last time. It was super nice to be able to understand a little bit more about where you came from and some of those hurdles. That was clearly one of the best decisions you've ever made. Would that be right?
Most days.
Yeah, sometimes. I'll admit to it. But even for myself, I look and think, I'm really thankful that I've made the decisions that I had in the past to get here today. That's without question.
Well, if we hadn't made them, we wouldn't be here, right? So it's I do think that everything happens for a reason, and it's pretty clear that, the paths that we have been on have brought us to here. So I'm thankful for that. And
there's some great people in our network. That we're going to kind of segue to our guest here shortly. But we have lined up a great guest today talking about personal change and about how it's important to live that authentic life where you want to be living who you want to be and not just living who someone else wants you to be. I think that's important.
So I guess without further ado, maybe we should be introducing our guest that's here with us today.
Absolutely.
So today on the show, we have a local media personality, Lianne Laing. Some of you might know that name. I would suspect most of you that are listening from the Ottawa area, you probably woke up to her having your coffee while you were watching her on the news. She's had a pretty incredible career through the community, helping out and charity organizations. She's been advocate for how many would you say that you've been involved with overall now in terms of organizations, Lianne?
Oh God, I can't even.
It's
dozens,
yeah.
And probably emceed hundreds of different charity events.
It's incredible. So I guess we'll just get right into it.
That sounds great. And Lianne, we're so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining our podcast. And I know there'll be a lot of people who are going to listen to this today.
Well, I'm excited. And congratulations. And it's addictive, right?
Oh, it's
as soon as you start
addictive.
podcast, I can tell with you guys, you're totally into this.
Yeah, super addictive. Started off as once a month, and I think we'll be rolling it out more.
We weren't really sure where this was going to go. And I thought when we first came in, we had to really script a lot more than what it is. It's kind of just hanging out on the couch, having a conversation almost.
With really great people.
Well, that's the thing. If you get good guests, you don't need anything scripted.
No,
with mine go an hour. My podcasts are an hour long. I script the first minute and a half of my introduction, and then after that, it's there's nothing else on the page, right? It's my intro, and then I let it go for an hour. It's pretty cool.
Who brainstorms that? Because I went through your guests, and congratulations, by the way. I think you're at 100 podcasts now.
I'm at 109 at the time that we are actually doing this one. Yeah. I'm at 109, and it's all me. It's everything. Wow. Every single aspect is me. And it's been my network prior to, leaving television. I had a massive list of potential guests that I knew I wanted to have on. And then from that, I'm getting calls from agents in LA and New York trying to get their authors and doctors and people on with me now. So booking my podcast is not an issue. It's not an issue. And then people will call and ask to get on. And I'm like, okay, so in 4 months from now, there's I'm very lucky that way.
Incredible. And interesting guests. The last one was very interesting.
I honestly have learned so much from every single guest. And I think that's what makes it really interesting for me is that I feel like I'm continually learning. And, and I think because my life is in such a transition, I'm more open to different things. And so when I'm looking at, Ayurvedic medicine and the Wim Hof method and energy healing and meditation. And my world has just exploded into so many different areas of health and wellness that for so long, I was just like, eat healthy, go to the gym, get exercise, and have self-care. And now like that is just like blossomed like tenfold.
And there was no hot water in the gym today, so
it was the
Wim Hof thing happened, and I'm like, this is not how I want to experience this.
You needed to breathe. You needed to do the breathing first. Yeah.
I feel so good. I feel so good. Yeah.
They said it's really good for you. Yeah. No, bad.
You immediately went into the panic, right?
Yes,
you held your breath and you didn't breathe through it.
I couldn't breathe through it.
I think Tony Robbins talks a lot about that too. I believe he does that every single day. This
a lot of the spiritual or the mind connection thought leaders, a lot of them are doing it. And I know that I've been on the right path because I'll come across one person and then be interested in a topic. And then the more I explore the topic, the more I realize that everybody, all the other thought leaders and people in that community are all exploring it too. Like I went to look because I just did the Wim Hof method. And in that, I went to his social media and then other social media people that I was following, like the School of Greatness, like Lewis Howes and Aubrey Marcus and Tim Ferriss, like all of these, big people with like millions and millions of podcast listeners. And all of a sudden I see all of them in a group with Wim Hof. I'm like, okay, wow. I know I'm on the right track because the people that I'm looking up to are currently right now covering the same thing.
That's awesome.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's so cool.
And the other one, not to go on about all the great shows you're doing, but you are putting out some great content. I was really impressed with the woman you had on from Colorado talking about the why you won't even get off the couch.
Oh.
I was totally impressed with that one.
Brain weight loss.
Yes.
But there's another title to it. I'm missing one word in her book title. But it was the entire concept of she doesn't care what diet you're doing. If you're doing keto, paleo, vegan, Atkins, all meat, like she's like, none of that, nothing matters. It is completely the psychological aspect of what is blocking you from that first step. And so she pretty much goes back, and breaks it down. It's all based on the mind, like where you are at that point. Because even if you think you're going to do like 1,000 things right, unless you can trigger that one thing that's blocking you, you're not going anywhere. I thought she was amazing. Yeah, Eliza Kingsford.
Yes. Well, I just thought it just kind of, like in our world, we're focused on planning, whether it's personal planning or business planning. And it just resonated so much with me because to hear somebody say, well, I want to lose 50 pounds or I want to get here. Well, you got to take the first step as to why before you actually get there. Walk before you run type mentality. And I thought it was a great show.
Oh, thank you. And I think she was the first of the New Year's. I had her scheduled, right, for coming out that first week when everyone's got these resolutions and they're go, go, go. And it's like, okay, what's innately in you as to why you want this, or if you've been on Groundhog Day and you've tried this resolution every single year and you're having the same results.
It's a ghost town in February at the gym. Why is that? Yeah.
Exactly. I think you've kind of described what you've gone through in the past as a bit of a Groundhog Day. I think when I sat and listened to some of your interviews. So what we're talking about here is obviously making that change. And I think sometimes the change you want to make is so overwhelming. Whether it's someone wants to just lose 30 or 40 pounds or they want to change their career or they want to live in a different lifestyle, that whole thought of actually going down a different road can be a lot. So
it can be terrifying.
Yeah.
It is terrifying.
It is terrifying. And I wish that I could say it's not, but until you actually jump off that cliff, like take that first step off, it's the type of paralyzing fear that keeps you up at night.
What were the symptoms? Because I want to explore it a little bit because you've had a lot of interviews talking about, where you were and where you're going. And there's no doubt where you're going is very, very good and very successful. But what was that feeling like? The dread, the discomfort, symptoms?
It wasn't a dread. It wasn't, there was no dread to it. There was, and I hope that this resonates with people that are listening, but we get into the pattern of going through the exact same thing all the time. We get up, we go to work, we take the kids, we go to, if we have our appointments, we get into this pattern. And sometimes you just don't even realize anymore that you're in the exact same pattern. And then another year's gone by and you're in the exact same pattern. And I could have kept up with that pattern. Like it was fine. I loved what I did. Like I loved my job, but I was in a pattern of having to get up at 3:30 in the morning to do that job. And 3:30 in the morning, you know, having to have an energy like to be up and going from 3:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. when the show finished. And then I had all of these other projects to work on. And then I had straight to the gym and then straight to pick up the kids. And the kids are in competitive sports. So it's at practices until 8, come home and make dinner and make the lunches. And then it's 10 o'clock and I'm getting up again at 3:30. So that and start again. And I started to realize that a lot of things that I was doing, I was starting to look at a lot of things half with the glass half empty. And I was starting to look at things and I was calculating events in my life that I was like, if I go to this event and I'm able to leave by this time, that'll give me 4.5 hours of sleep. And if I go to this event, which I really want to and can be social and see friends, but then it's going to cost me I was calculating every single thing that I was actually doing in my life. And I also started to realize that I was doing the exact same thing all the time on set and on the job. And it was the same interviews. And because I'd been on air for 20 years, just shy of 20 years. So I have been covering the 10th annual, 12th annual, 15th annual, 18th annual, 20th annual of event. Like I felt like I could do some of these interviews without even having the guest there.
I know what you're going to say next.
I could have actually asked the question and then sat on the other chair and answered the question. Sure. And it just I just wasn't having fun anymore. The job had changed. The show had changed. There was a lot of changeover. And I just sat there going, I have come as far as I can go. I'm at the top of my game here. There was no other show to go to. There was no other position to get to. I was the main anchor on the morning show, of which there's only one in the city. And I sat there and I said, I'm 42 years old. What else is there for me? Like, where else am I going to grow? That's what started to happen. I wanted to grow again. I wanted to be excited again. I wanted to have adrenaline rushing again. And the trigger for sure was that I got shingles. And I got shingles in June of 2017. And I was lying there and I'm 42 and I'm going through these patterns. And I just realized that my body is pretty much saying, I'm done. I'm tired. Like, I'm tired of keeping up maybe the charade or the lack of sleep or the having to be on. I just listened to my body and I was like, okay, my body's finally catching up to what my mind has already been thinking. And I started the dialogue with my husband and then with my bosses and kind of said, I think I'm at the end of the road here.
Well, that must have been nagging at you for years. More than you give credit thinking back
I
then.
would say it was about a 2-year, yes.
And you're probably trying to put those thoughts to bed at times. Like the first time you think about it, you're like, oh, you know what? I'm doing really well. You have a great show. So I'm going to put that thought back where it came from. But then it comes up again and it comes up again.
Rinse and repeat.
Like, wow.
Exactly. And then you kind of get to the point. And that was it. I was doing that. And then the shingles were like the alarms just going off going, if you don't see it now, you're never going to do it. And because I had the discussion with my bosses and they said, go back down and really think about what it is that you're asking. Like, think about what you're giving up in that sense. And I would sit there and kind of look around and say to myself, if I don't go, I'll kick myself. Like, I will call myself a chicken shit.
Sure.
And that's not the person I want to be. So, yeah. So I jumped off a cliff with not a very good plan.
But a great sacrifice. You don't know what's around the corner.
I don't. But I got used to a way of living. I had a nice salary. You know, I was of a certain, I don't want to say not status, but like I was at the events. I was doing everything. I was hosting things. I was making good money. I wasn't worried about things. And then I just kind of literally jumped off a cliff. And I thought for a while I was really enjoying the process. Well, because gosh, sleep is like the biggest gift you can give yourself. Like, I gave myself back 10 years of health. Like right off the bat. Like, I felt like $1 million. Like the dust clouds and the fog and like the mental fog, like everything just cleared. So that was really cool. And then there's the reality of, oh gosh, now what? How do I actually figure out how to take my skills and what I love to do and not lose every aspect of who I am? Because I've been a journalist for 20 years. Like, now how do I recreate myself? And that's when the domino effect of good mistakes, good decisions, bad decisions all kind of started to trickle in.
But I think
is that fair to say?
Everybody goes through that, right? Like, I think every business person has to go through that, right?
I think they do, but I'm not a business person.
Well, you actually are now without even knowing it.
Right. So that was my reality check is and despite the fact that I actually have 2 business degrees, I never used them. I graduated, and like a couple of weeks later, literally I'm on television. It was, the fluke story of how I got there. So I haven't used a business degree in 20 years. My entire training is asking questions and telling stories. I'm a storyteller. That's what I am. I've spent 20 years as a storyteller. So there was not a single part of me that thought I'm a business person. I'm an entrepreneur. And I failed to pivot. I did not pivot. I didn't move on from what I was. I was just trying to recreate what I was in a very different way. And that doesn't work. So my advice, you have to know that you're going to be shedding every part of what I thought I was and having to relearn everything else. And I didn't do that quick enough.
That's scary. That metamorphosis is really, it's probably a lot of fear there.
Yeah. Yes. And there was an excited fear, and then it quickly became a real fear because I actually didn't know the answers and I didn't know how I was going to get from A to B.
And how hard was it with just even the impact on your friends? Because Corey and I just talked the last podcast about our own transformation, so to speak. And I know when I left what I did before to come to this new career, some kind of looked at through tainted eyes and thought, and I just felt at times I doubted myself, even though I'm trying to be very confident. So was it hard for you when you're making this transformation? I'm sure there's times when you looked at your friends or your family's reaction and you probably saw maybe doubt in what you were telling them. And you have to kind of fight through that because you believe in this next chapter.
Yes. I had only positive, really encouraging conversations with family and really close friends. My close friends knew that I'd been going through this for a while, and there was an excitement. My husband was like over the moon excited that I was leaving. He called the show The Life Ruiner. I mean, it was The Life Ruiner. I got up at 3:30 in the morning, and I went back to work when Jamie was 6 months, so like he was, and thank God he works out of the house because it never would have worked, but he called my job The Life Ruiner. So he was really excited. And everyone around me was excited. But then you get 6 months, 9 months, a year down the road, and then people are starting to ask you the questions. Okay, but what is it that you do? What are you actually doing now? And that's when I started to realize that I didn't have the clarity to answer them correctly. And when you don't believe in what you're doing, how can you convince other people
absolutely
what you're doing? Yep. And I realized that brought up anxiety because I knew I didn't have the right answer because I didn't know it yet either. And that's when I started to see doubt or people kind of going, well, how are you going to make money? Mm-hmm. And that was the question I neted the most clarity on that I didn't have.
And what did you do at that point? Because that to me is that's a late
start drinking.
Yeah. So that went into the spiral of really having to accept that I wasn't that person. I was no longer the girl on TV, right? Mm. So I had to go a little bit of a mourning process, to really accept that I was not that girl anymore. Mm. And then the panic set in, and then the sleepless nights set in again, and the anxiety between 2 and 4, the witching hour, when you get up. And all that I could think of in my head was, I should have, I didn't, what if? And my brain started to it was on fire. I couldn't shut off the mistakes that I had made, the decisions I should have done. And that's when I had I could tell that I wasn't myself anymore. I had lost who I was. And that's when I did the biggest thing, which has been the biggest game changer for me in the last 8 months. And I started meditating.
We
heard that recently.
It has
the same thing. It's
the
fantastic.
Game changer.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. Amazing. Wow. It's like a cult.
We're
all part of the same cult.
But once you open up the Pandora's box, you start to realize that has been the change. That has been the domino effect of everywhere else now that I'm going. And I started with 3 minutes on the Headspace app. Sat for 3 minutes. And then and you're definitely sitting there going, I'm wasting my time. I should be doing something else. How much longer do I have to go? I'm not even focusing. What am I supposed to be doing? You sit there the entire 3 minutes going, this is a total waste of my time.
This is not making me money.
This is not doing anything to help me out. And I just stuck with it. And by 2 weeks in, I started to go up to 5 minutes. And, a couple more weeks in, I went to 10. And then I started to notice that between 2 and 4, I wasn't getting up as much, or I could get myself back to sleep a little bit better. And then once you start to realize that there's a small, tiny, little fraction of a change moving you in the right direction, you stick with it. And now I'm now I get pissed off when the timer goes at 30 minutes because I'm just like, oh, I'm like in such the zen place. So that for me has been the game changer that's allowed me to be aware of when I'm questioning every single mistake or thing that I'm doing and to shift my focus.
That's great. That's amazing. So for you right now, you would say, I'd love to hear a bit more about that. Like, what's the most direct benefits to you? And you just said you sleep better.
Oh, I sleep better. I can get myself back to sleep better. You know, when you wake up and the lists are going on in your head and you're you're questioning a decision, or a lot of it is mine were I should have. It allows me now to switch to I'm aware that I'm having these thoughts that are just trying to keep my mind busy, because that's all our thoughts are supposed to do, and that I can allow these thoughts to just sit there and then pass.
They don't have to have purpose.
They don't have to have the meaning that I'm giving them every single time. And I'm able to sit a little clearer to go back into what I used as an athlete, which was visualization, and starting to visualize what it is that I really want, or what it is that I really picture myself doing. And I start to visualize it and visualize how I can create it and visualize me actually doing it. And I incorporate that. So my meditations can be anywhere from sitting in silence or having a guided meditation, or a visualization meditation or a manifestation one. Like, it depends. I'll sit down and be like, what do I feel like today? Or do I feel like I need? And I call them my meds, because I'll say to my kids, I'm very lucky that I haven't had to use. So and my kids hate it when I say it, but my kids know, like, I go, once we're into the nighttime ritual, like of everyone going to take a shower and doing all that stuff, I go and meditate. So I have my half hour while they're showering and getting themselves ready. And so I'll often say, when they're going to do that, they're like, I'm going to take a shower. I'm like, I'm off to do my meds.
Yeah.
And my daughter's like, can you just call it meditation? And I'm like, yeah, it's just easier to say my meds. Yeah.
Because everybody's in their teenagehood in your house now, right?
So I've got 12, and depending on when this airs, I'm going to have a 15. So 12 and 15.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You brought a little bit of your sports up there a moment ago, and how important do you think that experience was for you in building a foundation of your success today?
It was like everything of my foundation is based on me as an athlete, I think. Especially since I dealt with so much, and from a young age. I was in a sport, I was a gymnast. So gymnasts were trained young, right? It wasn't a sport that you start to really get into your game at like 16, 17. Like you're 9 and you're training 20 hours a week and you're competing. So it was everything for me. And this is where we have interesting conversations at my dinner table. I come from a very individual sport background. So my training was individual. My success, my failures were my responsibility. My injuries, my rehab, like everything fell on me. So when I was successful, I could celebrate. I did it, right? And my husband comes from a very sports, like a team background, right? So he's all about, it's the team, and you work together and you depend on other people. So we have a very different outlook of what sports and how sports can develop, human beings.
One spells team with I and one doesn't.
That's right.
Yeah, so I come from that, and I can go through stuff, but like visualization as an athlete, really, I've been able to train my brain to do it because I had to do it at such a young age, to visualize myself getting through tricks that could be incredibly life endangering, and trying to visualize it in a positive way so that I could go out and perform it. But where it failed me is that I was so convinced in leaving my job that because I'm such a hard worker and determined, and I work hard, and hard work has never been an issue, right? I got up in the morning, I went to school, I trained 4 hours a day, went home, did homework, and repeated until I was 21. By the time I was like 17, I was doing other things also on the weekends, but that was the main part of it. But then when I left, I still had this singular kind of mindset. And that's probably when I should have actually said, I need a team. I need a team to help me build this. And that was my biggest mistake, is I went into this transition as an individual athlete, that I can do this, I can train, I can work. And what I needed to do was step out of coming from a big machine like CTV, and said, I need a team around me, because I don't know. I need a coach. I need someone to coach me through this. I need someone to direct me. I'm in foreign territory. How on earth do I know what I'm doing? And that, when I do the should'ves, that was my biggest error, is I needed to have a team and a support system and guidance that I didn't seek.
Is that what you're doing now? Do you have business coaching?
So I've really started to kind of go back, and I didn't educate myself. I didn't read. I should have read more. I should have bought books that were going to help me, and that's now what I've started to do. I'm reading. I'm listening to other people's podcasts, which I hadn't done. I started a podcast without ever having heard a podcast. I didn't listen to another person's podcast for a year. Because I knew how to interview and I knew how to talk, right. And I had this relationship with people, but I never actually listened to how other people did them. I didn't know that you can have advertising at the start and in the middle. Like, I look at myself like, gosh, you're stupid. Like, and I can't say that I'm stupid, but it's part of, I had to learn.
Well, at least it's not 5 years later.
No, it's just 2.
Yeah,
it's just
not
2.
bad. It's not bad.
It's good.
You know, when people find me, there's 100.
Start making money.
You know, but that was a big thing, is that I went in with an individual sport attitude, and that's when I should have. You need a team. You need a coach. You need somebody. And even the best of what you're doing, you still need a coach.
So for you, obviously, visualization is really key. I mean, you just mentioned a few minutes ago, as a young athlete, this is important and part of what you did in order to do these almost impossible feats. Now with your business mind, you're obviously visualizing where you're going to go with this. So where do you see this going in the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Where do you want it to go?
So you see, when you actually speak words out loud, then they become more of a reality, right? And then there's more of a chance of people going, oh, she didn't accomplish, then they're going, oh, I heard that's what she wanted to do, but she never got there. So I would really like to see the podcast really branch out. And it does well here in Ottawa, but I love when I see people in the States and across the world and across oceans listening. Like, so for me, it is to really expand that. Living Your Life with Lianne Laing is listed up there with Tim Ferriss's and School of Greatness. And like, I really believe that I have the ability to do that. I love the interviews. I love storytelling. I have so many guests that say, like, love being on your podcast. I love when I have the guests from New York and LA that say, I've done hundreds of these podcasts. I loved your interview. Like, that for me,
it's a great podcast.
That for me makes me feel great. I feel like this podcast can do that. And in the same time, I would love to be able to recreate this podcast back into a television series, have the people in the interview setting, and then have the ability, because being on camera and doing that is so easy for me, but show people what we're talking about. Sure. If I have a keto specialist or I have a physio, talk about it, we can demo it and we can show it and we can, have products and ads. So I honestly see that I could recreate this into a brand that, maybe not on regular TV because everything's gone digital, but to do it that way and to speak. I think I see myself on bigger stages than what I was doing. And a lot of it now is what I thought I would be talking about is not what I'd be talking about now. It's this transition. It's this transformation. It's where we go. It's how we learn. And to see myself back on a stage speaking. So those are like my 2 major things that I really see this.
Is there a book coming?
A lot of people asked me and suggested that I do a book. And I had spoken to book people. I need to know what the answer is. I feel like so that you can guide people. And I'm not there yet. Like I'm not at the point where I can say, and this is how I got here. So now I'm almost like I'm in the chapters and I've had to restart the introduction.
Well, life just keeps coming.
Yeah. And the learning how to pivot. It is such
every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And being willing and surrendering to it. And that has been the biggest change that I didn't expect. And so that's where everything is changing. What I want to speak about is changing. Like really, what I want to get up on a stage and talk about is not what I wanted to talk about 2 years ago when I left television.
Mm-hmm. Even how we communicate changes a lot. I find that, I'm sure you've seen this quite specifically with what you've done. Now Instagram. I mean, I connect with you on Instagram. I see, we see Lianne Laing at all moments of your life. And how hard has that been for you to allow that to happen? Because at one point you're the CTV morning host, and now the way you connect with the city is to let us all in. And where are those boundaries? How do you find that works for you?
I think sometimes you just don't have boundaries.
Anymore, for sure.
Well, I mean, I think I do. I've also been very big on not being the influencer type. Does that make any sense?
With product?
Right.
Right. I see a lot of that. And I was going to ask you about that's on my little question list here. But
You don't see a lot of that on my.
I don't.
Probably a challenge for you as well in terms of a business.
What's your opinion on that, though? Because I do see a lot of that. So, what's Lianne Lang's opinion on that?
So, I have drastically changed. I haven't done it, and I've had tons of people that's like, wear this, or can you post this cream and post? And I am not a typical consumer. I actually don't. I'm not product specific. I don't recognize brands. I don't notice purses. Like, I am not your typical girl in that sense either. I don't shop and I hated shopping for the show. Like, I had to have a different outfit on all the time. And it was just like, oh my God. Although I do miss shopping now because I haven't bought like a new outfit in 2 years. But that's, but I had to make a really big choice for myself in that I worked too hard of 20 years of being in journalism and TV. I didn't want to just become a social media influencer. So for me, I would rather share on my Instagram who my next podcast guest is and what we're talking about. So I would rather use my social media to share information and to inspire others than to tell them what to buy, if it's not a product I'm even using. And I've been very careful because I do have some products and some things that I really do use and really believe in that have been saving so that if the opportunity comes, that these would be products and services that I am aligned with, that they're health and wellness based, that they're things that I consume and buy because I feel like it will help me live longer, feel better, help my family. So I have certain things that are on the shelf waiting for it to be the right time to do, but I won't take on things that are not. There's enough influencers out there that are Instagram models now and, posing, and I mean everyone, and I feel like everyone's doing it. And there are influencers out there in Ottawa who have 100,000 people. I'm like, I have no idea who they are. Never seen them before, but there's companies that are paying them to rep their products, and that's great. I think it's not going to last.
I think you're right.
I think it will eventually die down. But for me, alignment and authenticity has been the only thing that I am proud of that I didn't mess up on. Like, if you're like, what were the things that you didn't make a mistake on? I stayed authentic to my brand. I'm in alignment with anything that I'm doing. And so I'm really proud of that. So with everything, even though I'm not seeing the dollar signs, I feel proud that whatever you do go and see from my stuff, it's aligned.
And very authentic. So I find that's exactly what's happened here. But your doors are wide open now. At one point, you're an interviewer, storyteller, because you're getting other people's stories out. And now it's more about you. And are you 100% comfortable with all that?
I think so. Yeah. I grew up on TV. I was 22 when I started. I met my husband, I got married, I lost my dad, I got pregnant, I gained 55 pounds with every pregnancy that I had to lose that weight on TV. Like, I have shared everything, even sharing why I left. And so that has never been, I've never shied away from that. And I would rather help other people. Like, my mission is with every story to help inspire other to make a change, to make their lives better. So if they can use an example from mine, if there's someone out there that's kind of, I want to leave my job and I don't know how to do it, maybe I'm inspiring them to be like, there's light at the end of the tunnel. It might be terribly scary and you'll have uncertainty, but you will feel like a different person. You will feel like a better version of you. So there's one person out there that listens and does it, then that's inspiring change.
Well, fear causes people to be paralyzed. So I think, you getting your message out that I was scared too makes a difference, right? Like, it's just no different than in our world when people ask us, how did you get there? Well, you had to grind and do all the things you didn't want to do to get here.
But you had to do it.
You had to do it.
And if anyone thinks that there's the easy... There's no such thing. And I think a lot of that I've learned on my podcast. Everyone wants the magic pill. There's no magic pill. No matter what health specialist or person I'm on, they're not going to give you the miracle. There's no miracle drug. It still comes down to you got to put in the time.
No, it's just a miracle subscription is what they want.
That's right. Yeah, $9.99.
Yeah. Just keep it coming.
Yeah, every month. Yeah. I think once we put away money too, I think people's biggest barricades sometimes can be, well, what about the money? It's how am I going to earn money? But really, at the end of the day, would you not just inspire people or want people to make that decision because they'll be happier? They're going to be more connected. And I'm sure you've had tertiary effects for yourself. Like, tell us a bit about how has this positively impacted you and your family? And your family.
My kids asked me if we were poor the other day.
Another day of rice.
No, honestly. Okay, this is like when you kind of, this is my authentic self coming out. Like my daughter, was her birthday and she wanted the new iPad.
Because that's a normal gift to ask for. Why is it in this day and age? Or a new phone. Like a $500 birthday gift.
It's $1,000.
What happened?
Right. So, and I said to her, I go, yeah. I said, honestly, she gave us a couple things, and one was the iPad, and one was the new iPhone. And I'm like, sweetie, I'm telling you right now, these first two, they're not going to happen. They're not going to happen. And she just looked at me. She goes, "Are we poor now?" But we have seen a change in our lifestyle. Like it didn't happen for a while, but it has changed. Sure. And so I kind of say to her, sweetie, like, do you still participate in everything you participated in? Do you still have all the food that you need in your lunch? Do you still have the brand new clothes that you needed? Like you are in lack of nothing. I go, I've had to make some massive changes, and I'm sorry that you're starting to feel the effects. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping that she'll have a greater appreciation when I am able to have the disposable income again, that she'll appreciate it more. My older one gets it a lot more. Like she gets the changes. And listen, my husband, Tony's painting like a madman. Like he's got a commission. He can't keep up with the amount of work, but you lose 6 figures. That's a big, it's a big difference on a family. And so I am trying, and this is I'm trying not to grab the low hanging fruit. There's been a lot of low hanging fruit for me to grab, because I'm scared that I have no money. Mm-hmm. But I'm holding out that I've put in this much work that it's kind of that same question of I would be angry at myself that I was chicken and grabbed the low hanging when I'm looking at the bigger picture. There's
a balance, right? And we always talk to people in the business world because, whether if you're in sales and you're going, for the big whale or whatever it is you're pursuing, there's also this thing that I think a lot of people in business miss is you have to have your gravy. You still got to have the little stuff too, right? So it's finding that right blend because you don't want to sell yourself short, but at the same time, revenue is always a good thing.
Yeah. I don't even have the appetizer yet. Don't even ask me don't ask me about the meal and the gravy and the dessert. Okay. I'm trying to get through my apps right now. I'm still asking for water. What would you like to drink? I'll have water and soup.
No ice.
But you've got conviction and you've got your values and you're teaching you're teaching your kids, right?
And my daughter looks at me and she goes, I'm going to be so proud of you when you're where you want to be. And the other day is funny because I was looking at one of these big events and it was almost like a picture of like a Tony Robbins on a big stage. And I saw that and I go, you see, like mom's lives at the kitchen island with my computer. I'm like, that'll be me one day. Huh. And so she's like, well, then I get it. It's like, but I have to think that way. And that's the bigger picture. And, it'll be great because I'm going to get, go and speak and, there's companies that are asking about the podcast, right, and getting on advertising. It's just it had to align, right? It had to be that people that are coming to listen to my podcast are going to hear about ads that I can talk about because I use the products and it's part of my life. And so there was companies that just didn't align. My listeners would be like, "Why is she promoting that? It doesn't make sense."
Right.
So I didn't grab the low hanging fruit because it didn't align yet.
Well, clearly you're growing. Obviously, a household name, very successful podcast. It looks great.
Thank you.
Yes, I think we're going to definitely get that out.
Oh, we've definitely gotten some tips already. So that's
100%.
Good.
We've become better.
We were about to start, and I'm like, "You're going to do what?"
Yeah, I know. That's,
no,
pump the brakes.
Set the emergency brake.
Yeah. You talk about a lot about these guys like Tim Ferriss and Lewis Howe, and I'm a big School of Greatness guy. Who are kind of your dream guests for your podcast? Is it Lewis Howe? Is it for me? Is David Goggins or Joe Rogan, or who's kind of on your?
Oh gosh, they all would be. Yeah, they all would be for sure. But I'm starting to get closer. Like, when you talk, like the domino effect. So now, okay, don't think I'm going too because I'm going to get a little spiritual here. Okay. But I actually started, I was introduced to Gabby Bernstein. Why did you just do that?
I was just kidding.
And she's an author of a number of books. The Universe Has Your Back, Super Attractor. She's one of Oprah Winfrey's thought leaders, the Soul Sundays, like, you know, with Deepak Chopra, like they're all that whole group of people. And so I had just finished her book, and I had one of these podcast agents that I was telling you about that was messaging me. And then it was this woman, Nancy Levin, who I have coming on my show. And she's all about boundaries. She's just written a book about setting boundaries. And then I noticed in her press release that Gabby Bernstein was opening up her book launch. And I'm just like, okay, I do a great job with Nancy. And Nancy and Gabby are friends. You know, like it's just, you just hope that, and I might, you know, it might take me a year to get them or two, but eventually I have to see it that it'll align, that it'll happen.
Have to do though.
Right. But I just started listening to these people, Ben. Like that's my problem is I should have listened to these people 2 years ago and I didn't. And that's where I catch myself is that I could have been exposed to all of these great thought leaders and some great inspiration and, you know, checklists of things that I probably should have done. I wish I had listened to all these people years ago. And so I'm just now starting to become very aware of who they are.
I just listened to the Sarah Blakely and Lewis Howe one. If you don't know who Sarah Blakely is, she's the owner of Spanx. She started with $5,000, funded her whole self. That was one of the craziest podcasts I've ever listened to for inspiring. If you want to be your own self, find your own ground, that is a one wild story.
Well, see, like I'll add that now to my list, right? Impact Theory, Tom Billio. Do you listen to him?
I have not dove in him. I actually just finished reading Jesse Iltzer's Living Life with a Seal about changing. You were talking about getting stuck into a mindset, and he hired David Goggins for a month because this guy who owned Marquis Jets found that he was stagnant. So he hired a Navy SEAL to live with him in a month. And that's really cool. Now, when you talk about the alignment thing, so he was just at an event with my Wim Hof guy. Yes, so they in Poland with Lewis Howe.
Yeah. Okay, they were there, but then they went to another one, which was where my Johannes Egberts was, who did my Wim Hof, was just with your Navy SEAL guy.
Yeah.
And they're just there, and with, there was like 5 of them.
There's like Tim Ferriss, there's Mike Posner.
Who's the one about how our brain works? Jim's.
A lot of pressure.
But so I'm looking at this Navy SEAL, and he's in the picture with my new guest that I had on, and just like, and I said to my husband, I like pulled him over. I'm like, you see, I'm like, they're all connecting. Yeah. I'm in the right space. Like they're all connecting. It's just that
It's going to happen.
I've just entered into that.
Getting your toes wet.
I've just got my toes wet, but I know I'm in the right body of water. And for 2 years, I was like not in a body of water. I was like in cement.
But once you get to where you're going, I don't think you'd wish away all that hardship. That hardship is it not going to make you better at what you do?
I am so grateful for it
now,
but I'm only grateful for it now because I'm in the right mindset.
Yes.
If you asked me 8 months ago, I would have been, sitting there going, I'm not sleeping at night. It's 2 to 4. Like, so that's how quickly this has had to kind of manifest itself.
I look at it for myself in my own business. Like when I started off, I didn't want to be in that hardship phase because it was uncomfortable. And then now we get to kind of where I am now. I look back and I almost wish I had twice as much hardship because it's like that has made me better. And that's what I grew from. So I appreciate it differently.
Right. And I think the advice I would tell people is to enjoy this journey. Like life is the journey. And so like soak in what you're able to learn, how you can give people advice not to maybe make the same mistakes, or how do you take from this experience. And that's been the shift, is that if I'm doing this, I might as well enjoy this process, enjoy learning about it and coming out of it that much stronger. You know, when you didn't have to go through twice as much hardship, you still have it. There's still an appreciation, right?
Absolutely.
But I don't miss Rice Week.
Do not miss Rice Week. Well, got to be careful. Leanne's still in Rice Week. So
yeah. There's no gravy yet. There's no gravy yet.
Yeah. Soy sauce. Yeah.
No.
Yep.
I don't like soy sauce. No.
A lot of salt.
A little too salty for me. Yeah. Oh, you're going to have to give me more advice on some of the other podcasts to listen to. I'm going to definitely go do the Sarah Blakely.
I definitely got a couple of books that you can check out too. Okay. We've talked about it in the past that like the last 2 years for me has been an up and down, but like reading these books and listening to these podcasts have definitely put me on this crazy mindset where I'm definitely trending very far upwards, where people 2 years ago would have been like, who is this guy? Right.
I also look at you though, and you're of the generation that listens to podcasts, is choosing to learn differently, expand your thought process differently. Whereas our generation, we fought it, right? Like I still have friends, like they have never listened to a podcast or they're just getting into that. Right. Like, and to be honest with you, if I have a millennial on my podcast, like a younger guest, I actually have more views more listens just based on their audience.
I believe it.
Their demo.
No, I agree.
They're listening to podcasts. I can have the head of the Heart Institute on with amazing information, but the people who are aware are older and they don't know how to use the podcast app on their phone, right? So your generation, I think, is amazing for that. You are opening up you have a different way of learning and appreciating life. So I see that you're listening and that you've done that. That's awesome.
We need the international World of Warcraft winner on. That's what we need.
But it is incredible to think, especially for us 40-somethings, how technology has changed and impacted everyone's life. Like to think when you started in media, like there really wasn't much internet floating around.
No, I had just gotten a cell phone.
Yeah.
Like, but not like just the I remember starting on the job and I got a cell phone that you had to, like not a smartphone, the flip phone, right? And you had to like, if you could start, that's when like start texting started, but you had to like press the numbers. Yeah. And you had to press the number.
Minutes,
yeah. It did. It really, and the internet, like Facebook wasn't around, like none of that. But look what it's done to the industry. 20 years later, you're not waiting for the 6 o'clock news or the 11 o'clock news because it's on your phone, on Twitter, immediate, right?
Yeah.
Content is king. Like everything is just so quick and so easy.
Right.
You're just looking up. Maybe people are trying to do the fastest way possible, but
it's not always the best way.
No, it
you say that,
isn't.
right? Content, but what's right? What's been fact checked? What has value? That's the problem now on the other side is that everyone's just throwing stuff out there and you don't know what's real and what's not, or what's authentic, or what's. I don't want to say fake news.
This kind of segues into our current news and
fake news,
elections, and how people's opinions are formed on information that may or may not be accurate at all.
Right.
Very worrisome, actually. It's kind of scary.
Well, it is, but that's
reality,
right?
Well,
or people are getting influenced off of TikTokers and YouTube. Like that's where they're getting.
Leanne pointed at you, Ben. When she said TikTok.
Yeah. Like,
I'm sorry, I'm not pointing at your dad.
brother.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we're brothers.
That will never come up again.
But thank you for saying that.
It's okay.
Because did I not say? I'm like, that was weird. Okay, I totally just stuck a friggin' boom mic.
This is the best thing that's ever happened to me, by the way. I love when this happens. I was trying to
figure it out. I was like, you must be that young, and you must have had him really young. I was thinking, honestly, I was seriously thinking you had him like in your early 20s, like really early 20s, and that you were just out of.
You're either saying I look really great and he looks bad, or.
I thought you were a lot younger. I'm talking.
I'm 30, so like
I thought you were younger.
Well, you did mention TikTok, so
when she mentioned TikTok and put it, I was like, I don't have
Pretty
TikTok.
sure I saw him on there.
Yeah. See, so it wasn't a diss at Corey at all. It was more I didn't know that you were.
You'd be surprised how many people ask if he's my dad, and to me, I like it. It feels great for me. What about you, Corey? Anyway,
today was your birthday, Ben.
Yeah.
Okay, but I
Christmas
honestly, to be honest with you, I thought he was way younger. Not that you were older,
because
I knew.
Years, yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah. So 15 years, and then take away the 5 that I thought you were younger, and I just thought you had him really young, right?
And bam, there you go.
Oh my God,
they're like, and this is wonderful.
There, the podcast just went down.
It's over.
The toilet. Yeah. Yep. TikTok.
It's official. Don't you wish you had TikTok when you climbed the mountain? So I read that article about you climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Yeah. I thought that was really cool. And there was times where you saw frustration and you weren't dealing with the evolution of it. You had to say your daughter's names a couple of times. What was it like to go through that 9-day, 15-day stretch of just hard?
It was the hardest thing I've ever done.
But most rewarding?
Yes. I'm grateful I have the pictures, so that I can look at the pictures and go, I was there. Like I did this. I was above the clouds.
It has to be because
it was a blur. It's rewarding because I know that I have tested myself to the absolute limits and come out of it. So when I go through these hard days, I'm like, I've been through way worse. I got altitude sickness the first day. So I was sick on night 1. At 10,000 feet, I was already vomiting. And we still had twice as much to go, right? So the way it works when you're climbing an altitude is it's pretty much like 30% of people get altitude sickness, get pretty sick. 30% of people like have headaches, they're not feeling well, but it's bearable. And then 30% of people are on like a runner's high. And there were 3 of us. So I was with 2 girlfriends, so there were 3 of us in the tent. I was sick as a dog. Like I was vomiting like crazy. I felt like I had like a hammer on my head like every single second. It was just like the whole time I had a hammer on my head, I was just kept vomiting. My girlfriend, who was a doctor, took the pills before we even left, and she was okay. And then there was Carol, who was like on a runner's high and couldn't get enough of the mountain. Like as soon as we came down, she had already booked Everest and then booked Mount. Like she was like, she couldn't get enough of the high that she had. And I still haven't gone hiking again because I still remember how sick I still have the vivid memory of how sick I was. So I would know better that I would take medication right away if I was doing altitude. But I also, and Sean Dawson, I did this with Dream Mountains. We raised a ton of money. It was great. But I had the responsibility of also covering my climb. So I was videotaping, interviewing people, doing the climb myself. Like I would go to bed at night in freezing. Like, I mean, it's freezing, but I was sleeping with batteries in between my thighs. Like I would go to bed, take out the camera batteries, put them in between my thighs. That's how I was sleeping. So I had so many other factors. Like Sean said, I got so sick because I had so much pressure of not only just trying to do this trek, but actually work it the same time, right? Like we had Sherpas running my footage down so that we could get it back here to Canada. So there was a lot more to it. But I was vomiting there's like a piece of me on every single part of that mountain. And like right in the last 2 hours when and you can see the sign, like once you get to the top, but to get to the sign, it's like 50 meters away. Like you can see it and you know that it's going to take you like 2.5, 3 hours to get there because you cannot move any faster than you're like I don't know if you see it there. Like you are inching forward and you can see where you're going and you know that it's going to take you like
the oxygen depletion, your body's fighting for those every step.
You're moving at like slower than a turtle's pace. Like you are hardly moving.
Would you do it again?
If I knew I wasn't going to get, if I could experience that again of being where I was, absolutely. If I knew that I wasn't going to get sick, the headaches were so excruciating that I can still remember them.
Yeah, so the kids
I can remember the headaches way worse than I can remember like giving birth.
Oh wow.
I was, it was painful.
So if the kids say, hey, Mom, I want to climb Kilimanjaro, are you in?
Yeah.
Nice.
I am. Just load me up with
the
medicine that I would need. Yeah.
Is there another event like that you're pushing yourself to your limits that you've
I am trying to find it, and I'm always in search of it, to be honest with you. Like I'm trying to figure out what it is. I like to take myself out of my comfort zone. And so I remember doing the Kilimanjaro hike, and then I came back, and then I did like the Dancing with the Stars because I did the ballroom dance. Like I like to put myself in situations where it's the competitive side of me. I want to feel that adrenaline, that nervous. Like how do you get that again, right? How do you get nervous before doing something? Well, you go do an activity that takes you out of your comfort zone. So for me, I now picture like speaking on big stages. Well, that'll get my adrenaline going. I'll get nervous. I can prep. I can feel like an athlete again. I can go out and perform, and then I can feel like if it was successful or not. So that's the athlete in me. I need that next goal.
If you achieve so much, I mean, it's harder to find these adrenaline rushes when you've done and clearly accomplished so much.
Well, thank you. I'm looking. Like making a couple bucks would be great.
Need gravy.
Tony Robbins is retiring, so it's like
right. But yeah. But it's you train and you figure out you'll eventually get to that. You'll get to the podium. I know it's there. I just haven't figured out the timing.
It's good to have a goal, right? I would love to run an ultra one day. That's like my big thing for the next 5 years. And
okay, so how much are you running now?
I run 5K probably 3-4 times a week. I just started 2 months ago though, so this is like I was scared of running. I looked at the treadmill one day and I thought to myself, I don't even know if I can run 10 minutes. And I just did 10 minutes, and then I had a coffee with the boss. And I was like, I've been running 10, 15 minutes. I don't think I could run 5K. I don't think I could stand a chance. He goes, go do it today.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, let's try it. Just like going out of your comfort zone, right, is something that a lot of people are scared of. And once you get it there, it's not that scary.
No, but now when you go to bed, you need to lie there for a couple minutes and think about what it's going to be like to run through the desert or this trail and just picture yourself. You got to picture yourself doing it, and then you got to picture yourself crossing the finish line. But that's you. and what I'm learning is you have to, what's the saying? I'll believe it when I see it. Mm-hmm. It's not. You've got to see it. See, like, you know that it's going to happen. Like, you see it in your mind. You've created it in your mind. Your body will believe that it can do it.
Well, you see athletes actually visualizing before they.
I did it before anything that I did. You had to. But you're going to get there. Listen to Ray Zahab's, my podcast with Ray Zahab.
Yeah.
The ultramarathoner. He ran the Sahara Desert in 111 days.
Really?
Like, his story is fascinating. And he just did the Arctic expedition. Like, he's done. Go listen. You'll love it. It'll inspire you. Yep.
It's on my list.
And how do our listeners connect with you, Lianne? Because I think we're going to leave here at one point, and then I want to make sure that everyone that's listening is going to say, I want to look you up on Twitter. I want to find you on Instagram. I want to find that podcast we've been talking about. Please tell us a little bit.
That would be great. So the podcast is called Living Your Life with Lianne Laing. So, and it's everywhere you can find a podcast. So it lists whatever platform it's there. So Living Your Life with Lianne Laing. My name for all of the social media, Twitter, Instagram is just my name, but it's LIANNELAING. And my website, www.liannelang.com. Beautiful website. There's not want to talk about errors? There's not one single place on my website that would actually click a button or anything as to what you could purchase, what you could get from me, anything.
Wow.
So that was lesson number one. Someone went to my website. They're like, so how are you? There's nothing on your website.
Subscribe? There's no.
Oh, and I have my newsletter. So if you go to my website, you can get the subscription to my newsletter, which you get every Monday with all the details of the podcast, everything that's coming out that week.
So is there a sign up now, actually, like a monthly subscription or anything to that effect? Or?
Yeah, there is actually.
Oh, wow.
No. There's like my newsletter, but you just get that
perfect.
for free because that's what I do. Everything I do is for free. Yeah, but it's out there.
You can get charitable donations or something for it, or that might help.
Well, this has been
I'm going to get there.
Lianne,
you guys are awesome.
I really enjoyed talking to you.
Corey has not looked at me the same.
I was going to say,
he's been looking down for the last 5 minutes.
Thank you for me and my dad.
I got thick skin.
Yeah.
We'll be fine. No, we really appreciate you taking the time to come and sit with us, and thank you for for the listeners you didn't hear, but she gave us some great tips and guidance in the beginning, and thank you very much for doing that.
You guys are great. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. To learn more about the topics we've spoken about, check out our blog page at explainthis.ca.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review us in your favorite podcast app.
This is Sean Todd
and Corey Butler. Until next time.